Okay, so I'll dive right in with that. My larger project centers colonialism and material culture, and I situate loot somewhere in this larger framework to make an argument for subversion of law or extra legality being a very essential and crucial part of how colonial governance shapes up in South Asia in the 19th century. But I'll not be talking about that. What I will try and do today is animate loot for you. And how I'll try and animate loot for you is through some sites and the accounts of some soldiers that I've found through my time here at the Bodleian and other libraries at large. But what I will try and do is communicate to you a sense of what loot looks like, how it is performed, and how it is recorded. So the first instance that I would like to read out to you, but before that I'll very quickly explain to you what we have over here. What we have in the middle here is a map of the relief of Lucknow, as it is called, which is commanded or led by General Outram. So he draws out this map and he's actually laid out the path that his regiment has to take to come into the city. But I'm using it in a slightly different way. What I'm using this map for is to kind of lay out for you what are the sites or what are the locations which lead to these instances of loot. So the first one is a set of photographs of the residency, which is located, if you would like to come closer, somewhere in the middle over here. On either side of the residency are two palace complexes that belong to the Nawabs of Awadh. One is over here, which is the Kaisarbagh Palace, and the other one is right in front of you, which is the Tara Koti. The uprising, as most of us may be familiar with or not, is a sepoy rebellion in the Bengal Army. The Bengal Army is the Indian army of the East India Company. And it starts off as a sepoy rebellion, but very soon it kind of assumes a more public, more popular character once the Nawab of Awadh, whose capital is Lucknow, is deposed and sent off to Calcutta as a part of the subsidiary alliance. The first little note that I have for you is from the diary of a Captain Birch. What is very interesting about all these accounts is that these are letters or journals that soldiers write in Lucknow, and they sent them to either their mothers or their wives back home. Captain Birch writes on the 28th of June, 1857, which is just about 15 days into the first burst of uprising. He says, on the morning of the 28th of June, 1857, the immediate approach of the rebel army was imminent. It did not seem fair to leave the Kaisarbagh Palace, which is this, of the king of Awadh, to be plundered by the enemy. The enemy are the sepoys. Scarcely a year had elapsed since the king, Wajid Ali Shah, had been deposed. The king himself was now in Calcutta. He had made no resistance to his deposition. It was a question whether or no his property should be respected. If loyal, he was entitled to our protection. If, on the other hand, he joined the machinations against us, the crown jewels of Awadh would make a pleasant addition to the army prize money. Either way, it was necessary to get a hold of them. The attendants scowled at us as we entered the gates, but made no resistance. On entering, I was fortunate enough to find behind a low wall mud a 24-pounder brass gun with its equipments complete. I immediately reported to find Major Banks, and it was sent off to the residency, which is this. And the distance between both these places is actually just about 1.5 kilometers. After this, the discovery of the regalia room was after this discovery, the regalia room was entered, and the whole of the king's jewels were taken possession of. Amongst them were some very fine pearls and emeralds, some of the latter being as large as eggs. They were roughly strung together, uncut and unpolished, but very valuable. Besides the jewels, it was necessary to search for arms, with which the palace was supposed to be stocked. I was sent there the next morning. So this little quote kind of gives us an idea of how loot is not always something that's performed in a moment of cataclysmic frenzy. It is very often premeditated and predetermined. So that was a little conclusion that I drew from this note. The second note that I have for you is a letter that Lieutenant Inez is writing, again soon after the mutiny breaks out, and he's writing this letter to his wife who's in Kanpur, which is about 300 kilometers from Lucknow. He writes on the 2nd of July 1857, I also left at the Machi Bhavan. Now the Machi Bhavan is the oldest palace complex, and it appears close to the river over here. And it is blown up before the photographers are able to make their way to India. So there is no photographic evidence of this particular palace complex. James Inez writes, I also left at the Machi Bhavan all our account books and all papers on private business of any kind. On arriving here and going after 2 or 3 days to our house, I found our property intact, save that books and some articles were completely destroyed either by the round shots or by the rain that had entered through the holes made by them. The old Khidmat guard, which roughly translates into a valet, and I dragged them out to put them into the safe room. Going to see them again in a few days, I found every box broken into except the one containing the plated dish cover. The plate box was smashed into and several things had been taken, every single thing else. Your clothes, my clothes, all jewelry, knickknacks, table ornaments, pictures and books had been taken away by the scoundrels of the 3rd. The 3rd is the Bengal infantry, and the Bengal light infantry, which is the sepoys. They were completely disorganized, and wholesale robbery goes on in every direction. We have nothing left now, except what you may have with you. A very interesting note into how the first phase of the mutiny also sees loot as being performed by both the British soldiers and the sepoys. And I suppose what was very interesting to me was how significant the transfer of material culture is in the performance of war. The third note that I have for you is actually is a description of this little palace complex over here. Well, not so little, but yeah, this palace complex right in front. By another soldier who's making an entry in his diary. Roots Rees, he's called. The Tara Koti, which had formerly been the throne room of the kings of Awadh, consisted of a perfect labyrinth of courtyards, inner gardens, balconies, gateways, passages, verandas, rotundas, outhouses, and pavilions. Though I had afterwards been often loitering there, I invariably had lost my way in some of the numerous intricate places of those buildings. Plunder was the order of the day. This note is also from the last phase of the uprising, which is, we are already in 1858 when Rees is making this note. Plunder was the order of the day. Everywhere might be seen people helping themselves to whatever they pleased. Jewels, shawls, dresses, pieces of satin, silk, broadcloths, coverings, rich embroidered velvet saddles for horses and elephants, the most magnificent divan carpets studded with pearls, dresses with cloths of gold, turbans of the most costly brocade, the finest muslin, the most valuable swords, thousands of flint guns, caps, muskets, ammunition, cash, books, pictures, European clocks, English clothes, full dress officer uniforms, manuscripts, charms, vehicles of the most grotesque form, shaped like fish, dragons, and seahorses. Cups, saucers, cooking utensils, chinaware, enough to set up 50 merchants on Lombard Street. Scientific instruments, ivory, telescopes, pistols. And what was better than them all was tobacco, tea, rice, grains, spices, and vegetable. The provisions, however, unfortunately in very small quantities. A very interesting insight into inversion of value during a moment of cataclysmic frenzy as the uprising, where, and this is just one account, there are several other accounts where we get very detailed notes on how things of everyday use, everyday consumption are actually much more difficult to procure than what is traditionally considered to be valuable things. Do I have time? A couple of, okay, so I'm going to conclude with a very interesting little report that is published in the Glasgow Herald on Wednesday morning, the 2nd of June, 1858. It reads, "Before this letter reaches England, many a diamond, emerald, and delicate pearl would have told its tale in a very quiet and pleasant way of the storm and sack of Kaisar Bagh," which is this over here. "It is just as well the wearers saw not how the glittering baubles were won, or the scenes in which the treasure was strove. Indeed, it is the only truth to tell that most of those interesting memorials of the siege of Lucknow were bought, bargains very often, by officers on the spot from soldiers hot from plunder. And some of those officers have literally made their fortunes. But just in proportion to the luck of some regiments are the misfortunes of others. We did all the fighting, and you got all the loot." So this note also kind of gives us a sense into the hierarchies that come into work in a moment when there is a transfer of material culture, in this instance loot, where there are different grades of officers, and different grades of officers receive very different shares of loot. So yeah, that was that. Thank you.